Peace and blessings, family. My name is Adam Jackson, and welcome to the Black Artist Fair presented by Comcast and the Black Arts District. The Black Artist Fair is designed to connect Black creatives from the greater Baltimore area to resources and services to further enhance their crafts and creative practices. We recognize that oftentimes Black creatives have less opportunities to develop throughout their careers. And so this space has been curated to provide quality opportunities for growth to challenge the ways in which white racism and white supremacy has impacted Baltimore's creative community and to develop strategies to make Baltimore a more culturally equitable space. So we invite you to listen for understanding and, most importantly, to build with us. Thank you and welcome to the Living My Dream panel, which is led by Sister Rasheem, and I will add her and the other panelists to the screen so that you today's conversation started. Appreciate you for being here, Rasheem and Sophia and Sharayna.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to everyone who is joining us and watching and engaging in Baltimore Black Artist Fair. Thank you so much for your participation and engagement in this space. I am really excited to be talking on this panel titled Living My Dream. I am joined with Sophia Yeshi as well as Sharayna Christmas. And we're going to just get right into it. So what I really want to start with is I'm going to give a little bit of a snippet of each of your bios, because your bios are like long as like 2 arms, but I'm going to give a snippet into it. And then we're just going to get into having a conversation that's going to pull out some of those bio questions, if that's okay. So I want to start with Sophia. Sophia is a queer, Black, and South Asian illustrator and graphic designer in Brooklyn, New York. She's a digital native that discovered Photoshop at 12 years old. Oh my gosh, who's out here doing Photoshop at 12? You are, that's who. In Baltimore, Maryland, she created Yeshi designs to shine a light on Black women of color and folks in the LGBTQ plus community of all shapes and sizes that are bold, dynamic, and demand attention. Thank you for your work on that. And then next I'm going to go to Sharayna. Sharayna Christmas is a self-starter, social entrepreneur, creative curator, and producer. Over the last 15 years, she has served in many capacities as performer, creative, director, facilitator, collaborator, bringing individuals and organizations together to maintain an interest in developing and sustaining ecosystems to support the creatives, their communities, and where they live. Thank you so much for joining us. So one of the things that I am struck by, even with the snippet of the bio that I've read from each of you, is how multifaceted your backgrounds are. It's not just for either one of you. It wasn't just I'm just doing this and I'm staying in this lane. Sharayna, you have like a long list in just your little the parentheses that you have right next to it. I want to. Yeah, so I want to start with, how did you come to your dream? How did you come to the space of to a point where you're living your dream? And how do you fight the people who tell you to stay in your lane? Because I feel like people are always trying to find a lane, put us in it, and tell us to stay there. So I'm going to start with Sharayna. Sharayna, how did you come to your dream? And how do you fight the people who are telling you to stay in your lane?
So I would say that literally just ignoring the folks that the only reason why I'm doing all the things that I'm doing is because people probably told me to stay in my lane. And then I said, no, I don't want to. But I really came to be who I am because of my mother. I'm a mother as well. And that I should have put that, it should be in one of my bios, but I'm a mother. And being a mother, I've realized that, it is so essential to have, I was so blessed to have my mom, Sharon Christmas, who pushed me, who had me, she had me in Dance Street of Harlem, which everyone should know. God rest Arthur Mitchell's soul, but he is the founder of Dance Street of Harlem. But I did that from age 3 until I went to high school. And I really did not like to do ballet. I thought that it was a bit much, to be a teenager, especially when I became a teenager. I was like, hold on, like I'm ready to hang out, But my mother knew something else was happening for me, but I still didn't do that path. I went and went to Morgan and, did finance and all those things. But my real dream kind of came from Spirit, because Spirit really told me that I'm here on this planet to serve my people with my talents. Like that is the work that our ancestors need us to do. So everything that I do now, I really did not know that I would be doing that. You know, the way I was raised, the generation I was raised in, you're raised to go to college, get a job. Being an entrepreneur, never heard of that word. Okay. Being a professional dancer, I didn't want to do that, you know. So because of spirit, because of the way that my mother raised me and continues to support me, that's why I literally lead myself without fear. Like I don't have any fear in anything that I'm doing. And also I try to make sure that I lead with vision. So there's not many things like coming to Baltimore and saying, hey, you know, I want to start a dance school. And I was like, you know, I had just graduated from Morgan at like 21, 22 years old. It was kind of weird because it's like, you don't even know this community in that way, but I was connected and I had that so that I can do other things. So yeah, it's going to be my 18th year for my dance school and my organization, 17 years. And, you know, so I really do just believe in serving people. You're just able to live your dream. For me, it has been not just about the individualistic journey. It's been truly about that collective journey. But I have to give it up to my mother. That's how I'm able to be here. I really, really, you know, in hindsight, you don't realize it, but that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm able to do so much.
I know that's right. Shout out to Black mamas, keeping a dream alive and like just maintaining. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate your mom for that contribution of like all of the things that she poured into you for you to be able to be here today to do that. Yes. Sophia, same question to you. One, how did you come to your dream? And then how do you push back against people who are telling you to stay in your lane? Because you don't have one single lane. You are obviously not staying in your lane. So how are you making that happen?
Yeah. So, you know, as you read in my bio, I discovered Photoshop at 12 years old. And even before that, I always was really drawn to art and I always felt like I was a creative person. And I was honestly surrounded by entrepreneurs in my family. Like my grandfather owned a bookstore. My dad, like he was a drummer. My mom was into art and you know, my grandmother had a small business selling church clothes and hats, and I kind of grew up in that environment. And so, you know, and I never really was told like, you need to get a job and, you know, you need to go be a lawyer like a lot of, you know, people are. So I just knew that I found, you know, digital art at this young age, and I decided that I wanted to be a graphic designer. And at that time, I didn't really have a lot of people around me that I could look up to. Like I didn't know any other graphic designers, you know, around me, or even, you know, women that I could look up to. Like I literally just was like, I like this thing and I'm going to do that because this is something that I have access to. I had a computer at home. And so I was like, all right, I know that I can learn this. This is really exciting. And I was fortunate enough to go to schools in Baltimore County that I was able to, like magnet schools, to study, you know, art there, as well as in high school where we had a full printing press. And then I, you know, went to the University of Baltimore. And I think for me, the thing that really helped was just being super focused on what I wanted to do and not kind of getting distracted by, you know, other things that I thought I should be doing. You know, like I had family members definitely telling me to be a doctor, go into healthcare and things like that as I got older. But I knew that this was like what I was really passionate about. And then I also knew that I was going to live in New York at some point, because I knew that the industries that I wanted to work in and the type of clients, like, you know, aren't necessarily based in Baltimore. And I really wanted to work with fashion and beauty and media brands. And, you know, we have a lot smaller industries in Baltimore. So it was just, I knew that at some point in my career, like that was going to happen. And as far as like overcoming, you know, the naysayers and things, I feel like I definitely had a lot of that. It was a lot of not necessarily like trusting my voice at first and not feeling like I would really find my place as a creative. But I kind of just had to know, like, you know, I've been doing this for a while at this point, right? Like I've always wanted to do this thing. So I figured, you know, I might as well invest my time and my energy into it and see what happens, rather than just keeping a 9-to-5 job, which I had in Baltimore, and it was fine. But I knew that like that wasn't what I wanted to do ultimately. I wanted to be able to tell my own story, and I wanted to speak directly to, you know, Black women and women of color. And like, that's what I'm really passionate about. So it's kind of just like, just sort of tuning out everything else and just like knowing that, you know, I was meant for something more and greater.
I love it. It also sounds like you were brought up on some version of like Black Wall Street. Like shout out to grandma making clothes, selling clothes, right?
I was
Because
selling hats too. She had me
selling
peddling
hats.
these hats at like 10.
Listen, I feel like between Sharayna's mom and your grandmother, I mean, they're just out here making it happen. And it speaks so much to how modeling and how just living in your dream and living in your own life at your divine time, how that influences the next generation. And I'm sure that there's some generations that are likely watching you do some of that as well. I have to ask this question. I have to ask it, Sophia. Being a person who is of Black and South Asian background, has this recent has it instilled a sense of pride? Has it impacted your artistry with the most recent vice president election? How does your identity impact your art practice?
That's a great question. I think that knowing, where I come from is really important to me, and also knowing the different identities that I hold and how I'm able to kind of navigate the world. I think about that a lot, and I just think about, when I was younger and didn't have a lot of people that I could look up to that were doing the work that I was doing. So I felt like it was really important for me as a person of multiple identities and being queer and all of these things that I could, kind of just speak to people like me that I wasn't able to speak to, or, at least see other people growing up. As far as like the vice president, I mean, I think, it's nice to see that a Black and South Asian woman is president. And it's, I think it's great.
Okay.
But I specifically, I think like, I don't want to just stop, I guess, at representation. And I don't think like the buck stops there. I think that there is more as well. So I try to be aware of, my privilege and the fact that, I am mixed and, kind of ethnically ambiguous, and how that kind of translate into how I navigate the world, and also how that translate into how other people or other artists maybe aren't as seen or aren't as visible, and like, how can I extend my platform to them? So that's something that I think about a lot as well. And now like being based in New York, and like, how can I try to elevate other artists or other Black women? And so I like started a blog where I'm like interviewing other artists. And so definitely thinking about all of those things and like my identity and how that impacts my work.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're also joined by Robin. I'm going to read a snippet of her long and extensive and impressive bio, and bring her on and ask her some of the same questions. So Robin V. Robin is editorial and celebrity photographer. She is the boss at Robin V Photography. What separates us from each other? Experiences, talent, culture, creativity. When looks diminish, will your inner strength exceed your exterior? This is some of the questions that I believe that some of her work answers. At the height of her career, she yearned for more and noticed the lack of women's touch shooting with male photographers. They never quite seemed to capture the true softness, beauty, and essence of a woman. While working with Hype Williams, she observed his techniques and was inspired to pursue her photography career. Of course, her bio goes on and on and on from there, but so I don't belabor her bio. I'm going to bring her on and let her talk a little bit more about herself. Robin, so the question that everyone was answering initially is, around living your dream, what brought you to living your dream, and what encouraged you to not stay into one lane? And you're currently muted.
Okay. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. I feel very honored to be here with you all. To answer your question, you know what? I wouldn't see, back then when I started, I didn't see myself as a photographer. I didn't even imagine it. I was doing makeup and I was working as a model, and I just kind of, I don't know what happened, but I grew a desire for it, and I started working with moms that lived in my area. We all had children, we were new mothers, and we all kind of were feeling like we needed something else to do something. We were caring for our babies at the time, and it just turned into uplifting a community of me uplifting the women around me. So it's not something that I set out to do. It just kind of happened and snowballed.
Nice. That sounds like one of those things where you're starting to walk in the direction of your dream, and as you do, your dream starts walking towards you, and you just accidentally like meet up, kind of.
Right.
Almost feels like you just kind of like bump into yourself. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Sharayna, how would you define success as an artist? What does that mean to you? What does that look like as an artist?
Oh my goodness, Rasheem. Oh, that is really interesting. I was just talking to an artist that I work with, because I do art brokerage as well through galleries and things like that. And so, I'm learning by working with so many different artists that it really just depends. I would say for me, serving my people, I have to go back to that. Just being able to be, able to provide resources and not be so individualistically focused as an artist, but at the same time, making sure that I focus inward to heal, and to make sure that I'm focusing inward to create work that is worthwhile. That to me deems success. I am not driven by money. I mean, like I mentioned shortly, I used to work on Wall Street. I'm from New York. I definitely grew up in a very different space, but as I've gotten older, I realized some of the value in success really comes from how I present myself and what's within, and also being able to tell the truth, through the work that I do. And whether that's, like I said, me presenting a piece in the gallery, or if it's, me working with the teachers that are at Rainfall to make sure that they develop the young people in a good way. And it doesn't always come as an easy process, but I feel like that has been really my greatest success. And just seeing like the wealth of well, I don't say the wealth, but also just seeing like the network of people that I've worked with that I still have great relationships with. The teachers that have, been with us for 10 plus years, the young people that are at NYU, or the young people that are working in the industry, or the young people that, so it's like, to me, I'd say that is mostly my most valuable way of defining what success looks like for me. It's not materialistic. It's that, and don't get me wrong, I love my stuff. I love my little fashion. I love all that stuff. And Sophia knows, because she knows me. But it's really about the people. It's really truly about the people. And when you see that, and you see those relationships that are so genuine, and they're not phony, and they're not contrived, and they're not driven by westernized standards or white standards, that to me, I feel like I'm doing good work. That's how I. If that answered a lot, but hopefully that answered it.
No, I mean, I think that your response is in depth, and it's not a superficial one, because that's not necessarily your source. And I love that you're like, it's about self-actualization. It's about these relationships. It's about growing together. And I want my things too. Like, still give me nice and pretty things. And I want to help my people, and I want to serve my spirit. I hear absolutely. So same question for you, Sophia. How would you define success as an artist?
Yeah. And just to speak on what Sharayna said, I think it's very apparent in the work that Sharayna does, that is her mission. I feel like everything you do is to like help the younger generation and kind of like pull people up with you and bring them visibility as well, which you helped me as well when I was in Baltimore and trying to kind of do my own thing. So definitely kudos to you.
So proud of you.
Thank you. But I think for me, success is the ability to like do what I love on my own terms. I don't necessarily like being told what to do or when to do it. And so just being able to decide what projects I do take on, what I want to say, and, do these projects align with me and my voice, I think is one of the biggest things. And also, I think just being able to create work that other people can relate to and that also speaks to them is really important to me. And just kind of, making a name for myself as an artist. Like, I feel like we're at a time now where, we can really, just be whatever we want to be. And so, and that's helped me as well. Like, a lot of my clients will say that they like that I, have a very specific viewpoint, and that I do focus on, telling stories of, people of color. So I think just being able to grow and expand that, and like, as I do get older and I do grow my career, being able to mentor younger artists and, kind of be more of a role model that I didn't really have. So I would say that is success. And money is definitely important to me, to be honest. And so just being able to, create like a legacy and being able to like help my family out, I think is really important to me, and kind of seeing like what I'm able to do. And like they're kind of looking at me now like, wow, we never thought like you would get this far with art. I'm still starting out in my head, you know what I mean? And so they're even kind of surprised, and that's really exciting to me as well, to kind of see like how far I can go and grow in my career. Yeah.
Absolutely love it, especially the focus and the connection that you bring with that legacy piece. Because one of the things with building a legacy is a lot of times we're planting seeds that we may not see the fruits of, but we still go on planting. So I really appreciate that work, because I feel like it is continuing some of the seeds that your grandmother planted when you saw her selling those hats. So that is very much inspiring. And of course, sometimes, a lot of times money helps to fuel those things. So I absolutely appreciate that sharing in that viewpoint. Robin, of course, the same question to you. How would you define success as an artist?
Well, I'll tell you, my definition of success has really changed. I think initially, success meant money, making money, and having a bunch of clients. But that has changed. I think now my feeling on success is being able to inspire people, to help people. And for me, just seeing joy, people, helping people find their joy and find themselves. That's my definition of success now.
Mm-hmm.
About it, being able to connect and just helping people through trauma and seeing their worth through my work.
I love it. I really appreciate that level of like honesty and transparency. Like this is my view of success now, but it wasn't always that way, because I think sometimes we could start off at a particular point and then we evolve and we grow. Right. And success means something more. Sophia, you said something that made me think that my daughter is going to be an artist now because of you. She's going to be an illustrator because you shared that you don't like anyone telling you what to do. And she definitely doesn't. So I guess that means she's an artist.
I mean, she's creative in some aspect, because you got to figure it out. All right, how can I have a job where no one is going to tell me or dictate, my time, my schedule, my output, so it's not like she's creative.
She's on her way.
She's on her way.
I think that's the new generation anyway. The younger generation, my son is the same way. I'm like, please work with me a little bit.
Yeah.
He's an artist too.
I think one of the things about being creative, and I think each of you have like demonstrated some of that, is not just creative in your craft, but the practitioner creativity in terms of how do I get this done? How do I get this done with this challenge and this barrier and this roadblock and this circumstance? Which brings me to my next question. What are some of the roadblocks, Sophia, that you would say that you have faced? And I'm also interested in what are some of the creative ways in which you have been able to navigate those roadblocks that have come up?
Yeah, for sure. I would say some of the biggest roadblocks were when I was working corporate 9 to 5. I oftentimes felt really tokenized, like I was supposed to be the face and the voice of women of color, like Black women in the office, because I was maybe the only one there, and I am very outspoken. So then everyone would kind of look to me for ideas. And so it was like that, where I just didn't really feel like I fit in corporate culture, and it didn't really make sense to me. Just inherently, I didn't understand it. And so I knew that wasn't where I wanted to go. Like I didn't want to keep, going up in working 9 to 5 and scaling. And so when I wanted to move to New York, I was planning months in advance, like probably 8 months in advance. And I couldn't find a job, like at all. I applied to everything I could think of. I reached out to my network. But ultimately, it just didn't happen. So when I moved, I, decided to freelance. And I guess it was less of a choice and more so like, all right, we're here. What am I doing? And I think, honestly, that was like the best decision that I ever made for myself, because if I had moved and I had gotten a job, I wouldn't have been able to invest as much time and energy into my business. And because of that, when you're kind of forced and you really have no other option, I think a lot of times when people get really creative and, you know, you're either going to put your all into yourself or you're going to kind of give up, right? And so I was at this really like pivotal point where, you know, luckily I had a few jobs that came in and I was able to sustain myself. And then with like last year, you know, things kind of really took off. So initially not being able to find a job was a challenge, but I think, you know, I made the best of the situation. I poured all of my time and energy into my work and redesigning my website, started selling prints and just got really creative, and it worked out.
Oh, I love it. What did I say? Necessity is the mother of invention. Because you went there, you still had your dream and you didn't see the full picture, but you still took steps in the direction of it, grinding. And I bet there was so much that you gained in the process. Whether like mistakes that you made, is like, okay, don't do that no more. That's amazing. I appreciate that sharing. Sharayna, same question for you. What are some of the roadblocks or obstacles that you face? And I'm really curious about what was some of the tools that you used to navigate yourself out of those spaces.
That's a good question. I would say my greatest roadblock, because of the work that I initially started out doing as a creative in Baltimore, like just serving people, was understanding the funding structure. And also the same thing that Sophia said, I was really young when I started my organization, like starting a dance school at like 21, 22. You know, people definitely treated me different because I was a young Black girl. And then I kind of maintained the same look for years of being young, you know, but looking young. And so I really had to say to myself, like, I can't, you know, take in the things that they're telling me. And it's not just, it wasn't just from a westernized standpoint. It was also from people that looked like me, treating me different because I'm a woman, treating me different because I'm a young Black woman. You know, not really understanding how disciplined, you know, I really wanted the programs that I was creating for the young people to be. So all of those things really were huge barriers, I would say, to myself and to the work that I was really trying to do. As I started to become more confident in my leadership, and I have to be transparent because, you know, again, I'm not just stepping out as an individual artist. I'm stepping out to say, hey, you should support Black youth. You should support, you know, Black youth traveling, African-centered work. You should support this artist. And then, you know, as moving into like even a curating space, you know, the greatest barrier, I think, is really shifting the mindset of people thinking that you have to come from a certain background to be this successful person. Being self-taught, you know, being redefining, you know, how I look at the way I curate a gallery, how I look at the way that I, you know, broker a deal. That was really the creative side. I realized that was what I needed to tap into to be amongst folks that kind of think differently. But it's always a challenge. I just was having this conversation downstairs about that, about working with folks, and then they have a certain perception of you, but you're completely different. Also, just kind of, you know, just saying no to some funding, saying no to investors. Like that was like a big thing because I don't align with their values. So you don't align with my values. I'm not so hard pressed for money to take money, and I have done it, and I've learned from that mistake. So everything that I'm saying is not stuff that I came out the gate knowing, but knowing that, you know, you don't have to take that money, and also knowing that this amount of money is really not going to make or break you, you know. But the greatest thing that the greatest way that I've been able to navigate this whole environment, this whole, you know, kind of, you know, thing, is really understanding that no one has invested more in my business and in myself than myself. You know, understanding that there's not a dollar amount, I don't care how big it is, you know, where someone could kind of sway me to do something that I don't want to do or that it doesn't serve my people. So, you know, it's been a challenge to get there, but I'm there and I'm grateful. So yeah, I would say that those are some of the greatest lessons and also greatest challenges and ways I've overcome them.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I think you said something that was really important and powerful, and I hope that people are really getting it in terms of like investing in yourself, and that no one has invested in you more than you have invested in you. Someone once told me that when you don't invest in yourself, you get exactly what you paid for. You know what I mean? So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I want to also let folks know, if you are watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, feel free to type a question, a comment, a shout out to any of the panelists, and just say hello or ask a question around living your dream. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Robin. Robin, what are some of the roadblocks or obstacles that you face, and what are some of the creative measures that you've used to navigate out of those spaces?
Well, I'll tell you, in the beginning of my career, you're such a creative person, and when you're a creative person, you have all of these ideas and things that you want to do, and I didn't hone in on a niche. So I was the first years of my career, I was like just shooting everything and everybody, and I didn't have a specific thing that I was known for. So I would say like 3 years into my career, I reached a plateau, and I didn't know what to do or what was going on or why I had reached that plateau. And I needed to really sit back and say, what makes me happy? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? So I started to really define uh, what it was that I was shooting and why I was shooting it. I knew that I wanted to depict Black women in the way that you would see them, white women.
Mm-hmm.
What I decided to do was pull back from that and create a lane of my own, and show through my work that, I can shoot women and still make them look sexy, and they can be fully clothed. You can be in a bathing suit, but you don't have to turn around and show your backside all the time. It's not what sexy is. So I think that, to answer that again, just finding my own lane and not looking at everyone else and watching what everyone else is doing, but following what makes me happy and what brings joy to other people.
I love it. Are y'all just like the wokest panel, like out there? Like y'all are the the Black Artist Women Woke panel? Is that the actual panel that we on?
I think when you're creative, you're constantly looking for, more. What's more? How can I learn more? How can I learn more? And I think that it just happens when you're creative like that.
I agree. I definitely see that show up in each and every one of your bios in terms of the different avenues or all of the different streams where your creativity is able to flow. And even in some of your responses, I get a little bit more of a window into each and every one of you. I asked this question of Sophia earlier. I want to ask Sharayna now, the degree to which your identity, and what are some of the ways in which your identity, however you define, whatever comes to mind when I say that, plays in the work that you do and the art that you create.
Well, yeah, I mean, anybody that knows me, knows that I'm Black to the fullest of every corner of my being, and whatever that means of the diaspora. So, just as I mentioned, the work that I do specifically around our African-centered youth leadership program, New Generation Scholars. So it's a program that I developed in 2007. And I would say that it was kind of a program I developed kind of selfishly, because I was in search of more than what I was used to in terms of being an African living in Americas, if you will. So doing more research about like the diaspora and what are people, like I said, in Brazil doing, what are people in Dominican Republic doing? So that program has been around since 2007, and we've traveled to many different countries, and in that quest, in that journey that I've, like I said, I'm taking these young people, but I'm also taking myself as a young person around the world to study art and study creativity and study practices that could help us here, in Baltimore, and could help us, here in the Americas. And so, but I was making a joke in the beginning, but people do know me in that way. And I don't shy away from that. When I first started working, when I graduated from college, I worked in corporate America. I definitely, I grew up in Harlem, then I went to school in Baltimore. I mean, my goodness, then I lived right by Morgan State, you know what I mean? So I didn't really have, to be honest, exposure to really white folks. I didn't have it. I didn't feel like I was at a deficit. But when I started working in Wall Street, I had a rude awakening. And I thought that I had to code switch. I thought that I had to, I was like, I don't fit in. Like I had all of this anxiety as like a young person. And so, now getting older, now deciding to do the work that I do, and also being a creative person, it just wasn't matching. It wasn't fitting. So being, unapologetic, being authentically who I am has been probably the most freeing piece in my work. It's been so freeing. It has been so freeing to center that and to not be afraid to say it. Being, I was raised in an era where you couldn't say white. Like you have, people say white, you know what I mean? So I was like, no, it's just like just having a voice. And so I center that in everything that I do. Even like I said, my latest, over the last 5 years, I've been going more into the fine art space of, selling work. And I have to be transparent. I'm actually in Miami as well at a gallery. I'm at a gallery. I'm at Namandi looking at artists. And, I don't live here like Robin. I wish I did because it's so fabulous. But, I'm talking to galleries and I'm talking to folks and centering that Blackness in my work and that creativity of like not thinking that I have to have this background to do this work has really been very freeing and been very liberating. So, I see my identity and also just identifying myself as a Black mother, as a lover, as a friend, like all of those things really influence how I interact with people, which sometimes is very off-putting because people are used to such like rigid kind of experiences or, not really being able to, but, me centering that really has everything to do with literally everything that I do, everything that I am encountering, how I'm thinking about how I describe myself, so yeah, I definitely am very blessed. And I had a mother, like my mother, like I said, shout out to Sharon Christmas. She raised me and my brother like that. Like, it was like, we grew up very much centered around our identity, going to Black institutions like Dance State of Harlem, going to Studio Museum, growing up in the Schomburg. I never saw it as a deficit, like I said, until I got to corporate America and I realized that, you just couldn't wear your hair a certain way. You couldn't do this, that, and the other. So being in this time frame, like you talked about your daughter, I'm talking about my son, they don't care. They who they are, right? But when I grew up, like my generation, it was like going into this corporate space, getting a job. And I mean, Sophia might have experienced this also just working in corporate America, but it's like you just can't be, you don't feel like you can truly be yourself. So bring it, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, has been like the most freeing piece of it for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. I could tell that, let's see, we have a question. In the process of transitioning from corporate to living your dream, what was the biggest lesson you learned?
I feel like I can take a stab. I think the biggest lesson I learned is that like no amount of money is going to make me, sell out my soul or do work that I wouldn't be proud of. So if I wouldn't want to put my name on it, then, I shouldn't be doing it. And I kind of feel like, some of the jobs that I had, not calling anyone out, but, I kind of did it because I needed a job out of college. But some of it just really didn't align with who I am as a person and the things I care about. And so I quickly realized that like, okay, I want to be really creating the work that I want to and speaking to the people that I want to. And so, yeah, I just think like that was the biggest lesson is like, it's not always about the money. And even if I wasn't making any money, I would be so much happier just working for myself. So yeah, I think that would be mine.
Anyone else want to share with Blair?
So in the process of training, the biggest lesson, it was similar to what Sophia said. It was just about being myself. Like, just, I did kind of have to get out of the rigid, like, 9 to 5, thing. Like when I started working for myself, I was like, do I have to get up this early? Or do, when I started like doing contractual work, just like little things that, you realize like, oh my gosh, you have this level of this freedom, but it really is about being organized. Like I'm extremely organized and I'm extremely focused. And people are kind of shocked that I'm an artist and I am like that. But I will say that being in corporate America, it wasn't all bad. It definitely, helped me to navigate spaces that I would not have otherwise been in. But also it helped me to budget better. I'm very, even though I went to school for finance, that did help me. But really like, leaving your corporate job to go work on your own, you'd be like, oh, I can't be spending the same way that I used to spend. So it made me a better, just an organizer for myself, just in so many different ways. But that was a big lesson that I learned. My parents definitely were concerned. when I left my job to say, oh, I'm going to focus on my dance school. They're like, it's not making that much money. You know what I mean? And it feels not, but at the end of the day, it was really just about being organized for myself and realizing that, people say that entrepreneurs or creatives, we don't have real jobs. That is like the biggest myth. And it's also an insult. And so, it's even harder to work for yourself. It's harder for no one to say, hey, are you coming to this meeting on time? Do you have the document? So me having to operate in that space, really was the greatest lesson. And like I said, just financially being able to take care of myself with the same kind of lifestyle I want to live, working for myself. It was, I really made the conscious decision to say, I'm going to, grind it out no matter what. So I would say that was one of my greatest lessons, or a few of my greatest lessons.
Also, time management is a learned skill. Sorry, I was just saying it's a skill. I'm still working on it. Okay.
No,
we all are.
You have to have structure and a level of like discipline out of this world. Like, yeah, you have to make your own schedule. You don't have anyone calling you. There's no incentive. You make your own incentives. So, I mean, it's not for everybody for sure. Some people they need to have someone over their shoulder, but just being a creative and an entrepreneur in general, you definitely have to have a level of discipline and also your purpose. Like, some people, they haven't found their purpose, but it's something that wakes you up and drives you every day, and if you don't have that, it's not the lane, for some people.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of lessons learned, and thank you all for sharing those tips, and Blair gave some prayer hands for you. He appreciated it as well. If you are tuning in right now, you are watching Baltimore Black Artists Fair. If you have any questions or comments or want to just shout out the panel, feel free to please type it into the chat. We'll ask your questions right here live and put it up on the screen. And one or all of our panelists potentially will answer that question. Speaking of Blair's questions with the lessons learned, I'm going to start with Robin. What are 3 tips that you would give artists or aspiring creatives?
3 tips.
Mm-hmm.
My first tip is follow your heart. And I know it sounds, follow your heart, but it's true. When you follow your heart and shut out the outside noise, your path is just there. It'll lead you to where you're supposed to be. And give yourself grace. Give yourself the grace. Don't be hard on yourself. And also add the value. I know a lot of people say, I don't do it for the money, but add value to your work. Add value to your creativity. This is your time. And that is something that you cannot get back, so you put a lot of time, and this is your intellectual property also. So you definitely want to put a value on it and don't short you.
Nice. Love it. Sharayna, what are 3 tips you give some aspiring creatives? If y'all don't have your pen and pencils out, take out your pen and pencils. We getting tips.
I definitely agree with Robin, about following your heart. But I also, think just be self-aware. Try to be as self-aware as possible and push yourself to get critiques. I think that I love the fact that our community has a really wonderful camaraderie of like bigging each other up, especially Black women. Like, oh, great, but we need to be critiqued. We need somebody to be like, that's not it. Like, or we need somebody to be like, you could do a little better. Like I love people like that. So definitely. Like I said, being honest and self-aware, get a group of folks that you trust or that you admire to get someone to critique your work. And also, like, the last thing is make sure you do your finances and file your taxes. Okay. Because especially, during so I am very big on that. I am so big on that. I do also agree with Robin about, adding value to your time. Like, I definitely charge for my time, and I learned that the hard way. I didn't always do that. But also, you got to make sure you maintain your finances, and it's not as difficult as people think, but I understand that it is intimidating. But file your taxes in a way, not that I want to file my taxes all the time, but I'm just saying that figure out ways to write off certain expenses, right? Find a way to think about money differently. I don't really believe in, even though I wasn't making a lot of money when I first quit my job, I don't have a poverty mindset. So it was like I wasn't intimidated by the fact that I had to go out on my own. Even though I just not like I came from money or anything like that, but it was just like I really thought about money differently. And so if I think about money differently, then I know that I have to also organize my money differently than my friends that might have a 9-to-5, right? And then I also have to make sure that if I'm filing my taxes, there could be some benefit in that, so that when opportunities do come, because there has been some opportunities that I've tried to help artists with, but because they didn't have their taxes filed, we couldn't do anything. So, you know, and I don't know if any other artists are listening, but last year there were a lot of artist resources. And what did they ask for? Financials, and they asked for your taxes. So if you could do anything for yourself, please make sure that you take care of it, take care of those things. I mean, I know it's daunting. I know, you know, you feel like you're being taken advantage of by the government and so on and so forth. And I get it. But there are ways to make sure that you have your business affairs in order. And if the more you can manage your finances, the more you'll really also know how much to charge. You know, like if you do a film and you got people doing it for free, that doesn't mean that there's not a cost value to that. So, you know, I keep track of all of those things, even if I volunteer my time, even if I ask people, you know, how much time, how many hours, you know, so all of those things kind of come down to the management of finances. And I'm very passionate about making sure creatives, you know, have that. So self-awareness is a big thing for me, critiquing, and then also finances. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Like, check yourself and manage your bag. Hello.
Period. Yeah. Right.
I love it. Sophia, what are your 3 tips for creatives?
All right, let me see if I have 3. So what comes to mind is don't compare yourselves or don't get caught up in comparison with other people that are in your field. Because I know when I was starting out, I was looking at, oh my gosh, these illustrators and these graphic designers, they're doing this. And how am I going to get to that point? And none of that is important, because ultimately, you know, everyone has a unique perspective. And if you actually put your energy and time and invest into, you know, developing that, like, you never know how far you're going to go. But if you get caught up in imposter syndrome and second guessing yourself, like, you're already, you know, setting yourself behind. So I would say like that is one of the biggest ones. Also, yes, Sharayna, like, get an accountant specifically helped me, because last year was my first year fully freelancing, and I got an accountant, and, you know, I didn't screw myself over with taxes or anything. And then I've been paying quarterly. So yeah, I think like getting an accountant who's helped me with financial advising, definitely do that even before you necessarily need to. Just get yourself set up. And then I would also say, like, no one is going to tell you your worth, and no one can do that. So if you're leaving it up to other people to define like how much you should charge, or they're giving you their budgets and you're just accepting that, I think that you should define your value for yourself. And I know for me, it took me a really long time. Like, I was charging nothing. But last year, I actually got an agent, and it has blown my mind what's like actually acceptable to charge in the illustration industry. I had no idea. And so this past year, I've learned a lot, and I've grown a lot. And I think the biggest thing is just like, you know, your perspective is worth something. And so even what Robin was saying, like, being able to actually carve out a niche for yourself is really important, because if you're offering a perspective that no one else is offering and you're in demand, then you can, you know, your services are going to be worth a lot more in your perspective as well.
Absolutely. Know your worth, charge your value. I am here for all of that. We do have a question. So if you are tuning in right now, you are watching the Baltimore Black Artists Fair, and we are talking, the panel is Living My Dream. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to shout out, please feel free to put it below in the chat. So question from Candice Maria says, how did collaboration and networking add to your success? How did collaboration and networking add to your success? Robin looked like she's positioning, so go ahead.
You know, I don't know if you all can see, but my daughter is like, she's trying to get in.
You mean your colleague, your coworker is in the back?
I'm muting and unmuting.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Sharayna, would you want to take that one?
Oh no, Robin, she said she's going.
Oh, go for it. Sorry, I thought you were muting.
has been really pivotal, like for me. I feel like when you're being commissioned for work, that's different from what you would actually produce if you were collaborating and not getting paid. It's just, you just produce so much. It's just your creative mind is like all over the place, and I think that's when you are able to produce your best. Especially, I love working with other artists. I love working with just other collaborative people, just period, because it brings out that energy. It just brings out so much, like so much. Just your endorphins are just all over the place. And also it helps bring their network to you. It helps broaden your network, and it brings people, you just meet so many different people, and it just broadens your network. Very important. It's very important not to be stuck in that getting clients, but it's also important to put out your own personal work as well.
Right. I love it. Endorphins kicking in all over. All of that. I'm into it. Whatever helps. There's another question we have for Sharayna. Someone asked about how to incorporate travel for your dancers.
So just to be more specific, so New Generation Scholars is for all artists. It's for young people between the ages of 13 and 21. So we only have about a few dancers that have come over from the dance school. That's a whole nother program. But how I incorporated predominantly the scholars, they travel in the summer. And this summer, we're actually traveling. We're not traveling internationally. Last summer, we went to St. Croix, which is the U.S. Virgin Island, one of my favorite places. But the way that I incorporate it is pretty much throughout the year we do studies. So for example, the year that Freddie Gray was assassinated, we studied actually the Commonwealths of Britain and France, and we decided to go to London and Paris. And so we studied there, and we were able to do like a cross-examination of how folks are treated there with like police brutality or things like that. But it's really driven by what the youth's interest is. So this summer, God willing, we're raising money. So just want to put that out there. We're always raising money, but we're raising money to take young people to study the Gullah and Geechee Island folks down in South Carolina. And so like I said, it's not just the dancers from the dance school. We do have a few dancers, but most of our young people this year are filmmakers, photographers. So I might need to hook them up with Robin. Maybe you can give them some pointers. It's really great to see young people being photographers, and like photography is just so important in documenting Black life too. But most of our young people this year are filmmakers, photographers. We have some illustrators. We do have a few dancers. And what makes it really amazing is that they become multidisciplinary artists. So even to the question before of networking and collaborating, I feel like networking and collaborating is something else that I incorporate my young people for them to travel and see the world so that they can, grow as artists and grow as creatives. And also just, thinking about ways that they can learn from other folks that are doing things completely a different way. But that's how I incorporate the travel. And we typically go for about a week up to 2 weeks. The longest time we've ever gone away was for 2 weeks to Cuba. And that was very difficult. That was before the US actually opened it up to travel, but I wouldn't do that again. But yeah, that's how I incorporate the travel for my young people. But like I said, it's not just for the dancers. It's actually it's for any young person in the city. Like I said, you just have to be of between the ages of 13 to 21.
Love it. Thank you so much. So as we're nearing the bottom of the hour for our time together, I want to go around and if you have like one final thought or something that you would like to leave with the listeners today or folks who are going to listen to this later. And I also want you to let people know how to connect with you. What is your IG? What creative projects are you working on? What do you have next? I'm going to start it with Sophia. You were totally ready for it. You're totally ready.
Okay. Well, first, you can connect with me on Instagram at Yeshi Designs, YESHI Designs. As far as final thoughts, I guess I would say, kind of going back to my tips, like it may take a while for people to start recognizing or seeing your work, but just keep going. And kind of what Robin was saying, like keep making that personal work, even if you are getting commissioned, because that's really going to show who you are as a person. And that's going to really be the best way to express yourself. So I would say just really keep going. And it may take years. I went to an artist talk in New York with Dana Scruggs, and she was saying it took 10 years of her living in New York and before she really got a commercial gig as a photographer. And now she's taking photos for the cover of all these magazines. But it's not about external validation, right? Like, you know, you are still a talented artist, even if no one is recognizing you and you're not getting these big clients. It's not really about that. So I guess that would be my final piece. And as far as what I'm working on, I'm just continuing to work with clients. I have some really exciting collaborations coming out this year. And so just keep an eye, you know, on my social, my website, and you can see what I'm up to.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Robin, your final thoughts or final tidbits to share with folks. How can people connect with you and what are you working on? What do you got coming out next?
Okay, so first, I want to say this has been such an amazing panel. You ladies are just amazing. Let me just say that. You can connect with me at MRS Robin V, Miss Robin V. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not on there that much. I pop in, pop out. It's Miss Robin V, MISS Robin V. My takeaway from this is, you know, in business, being a creative, and this is period, you want to be mindful of who you're meeting and how you treat them. Even if you meet someone that's not right for your spirit, you still want to make sure that you are respectful and mindful of that, because you never know who you're going to run into later on, years from now. You don't know who you're going to connect with, and everyone that comes into your path of life is there for a reason. So you want to make sure that you're mindful and you pay attention to that, because it's a reason for everything, and there's a reason why every and anything happens. And as far as my projects, I'm really working with a lot of small businesses, a lot of women in businesses, women and children. I'm mentoring and teaching photography as well. And I'm also working, I just became the creative director for a new magazine, a gospel magazine. So I'm in that project, and I'm working to develop their look, and we have like big, amazing hopes, and it's going to be amazing. But yeah, that's my takeaway. So.
You're muted, Rasheem.
So you're officially in an online situation if someone is muted and they talk. So it's official. So from Yeshi, we got stick to it, stay the course. It may take.
I didn't go. Rasheem.
Oh no, I'm not leaving.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying okay.
No, yeah, absolutely. And from Robin, we got, you know, make sure that you are kind to people that you're interacting with. Be in integrity around people that you're interacting with. And Sharayna is going to give us a tidbit. She's going to let us know what she's up to next and how to cyber stalk her on the webs in a respectful way.
Oh Lord. Okay, where do I start with the cyber stalk? No, I'm just joking. I would just say, like, the biggest takeaway, I also want to kind of echo Robin. I really appreciate being on this panel with you all. Rasheem, shout out to you. You have a show coming up, so I hope you plug that up. Come open it at UB Blake, where I live. That's where my organization is, at UB Blake. We've been there for 16 years now, so I'm excited. My young people will be seeing your show this weekend, so I want to shout you out.
Thank you.
But you know, I think that the biggest takeaway is just do what's best for you. Do whatever, you know, follow that spirit that's inside of you. You know what's best for you at the end of the day. You may not realize it right now, but you will. As far as what I have coming up next, where do I start? So Necessary Tomorrows, which is my art initiative, my art arm. Like I said, I am currently in Miami because I am going to be curating a show, actually not down here, but I'm working with an artist from here. to curate a show in the summer. So, you know, in DC, and possibly New York. I also I just had my work in my last show. So I'll be working on some more studio work of my own. And that's a really huge thing for me because I've been working with young people for a long time. So now I'm working on my own things. And then also my young people, they're still doing their leadership program, New Generation Scholars. We're gearing up for fundraising to travel to the Yeshi Islands June 16th. And then what I'm also doing, our dance school is celebrating their 17th season with a video. We're doing like a short film called Dancing Through Charm City. It's shot by Kyle Pompey, who's another Baltimorean creative photographer. So we're actually shooting that this weekend, finishing up shooting that this weekend. So I have a lot of things happening. And I'm just so grateful to be here and to be able to be in this space. I could not have imagined that this is what my life would have been like, even I would say 10 years ago, which seems like a long time, but y'all know it's not. So I'm grateful for this experience. And I'm so happy to be a part of this. I'm proud of Lady Breon, and, you know, for putting a spotlight on Baltimore. And, you know, we needed a Black Arts District. We've been talking about it for a long time. So I'm glad that it's here. I'm glad that it's doing some good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you so much to the panelists for sharing your time, your talent, your energy, and your wisdom with us on this day. It is a Friday afternoon, and you took this time to spend that time with us, and we don't take it lightly. We appreciate each and every one of you for being in this space, and also the contribution that you're making out there in the world, and the ways in which you are currently out there modeling for the next generation of aspiring artists. So Sophia, thank you. Sharayna, thank you. Robin, thank you. All of the listeners who are listening right now, if you are listening to Baltimore Black Artists Fair. Please feel free to share this, tag a friend, let someone know a tip that you got from Sophia, Sharayna, or Robin, and feel free to also make sure that you follow them and keep up with some of the things that they're doing. And I'm going to hand it over to Adam.
All right. Thank you, Rasheem. I appreciate you sisters for joining us today. Thank you, Rasheem, for moderating. Robin, Sharayna, and Sophia, thank you for all your hard work. And I hope to see you around as the Black Arts History progresses, and hope to follow y'all on social media and support everything y'all are doing. Appreciate y'all.
Of course.
Thank y'all. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Okay.
All right. All right, folks. So thank you so much again for joining us for the Living My Dream panel. We are really glad that you joined us today. Please make sure that you fill out our post-event survey. Matt's going to have that on the screen in 1 second. Yep. And so the reason why we want you to fill out the survey, we want to make sure you enjoy the event. And we also want you to give us feedback on the event to make sure that other events like this in the future, you know, that we can do and provide for you. If you don't have the link, if you can't type in the link as you see it on the screen, go to the Black Arts District Instagram page at Official Black Arts District, or you can follow us on Twitter at Official BAD District, Official Bad District, I think it is. Search Black Arts District on Twitter. But thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again for our next panel, which should be coming up at 4 p.m. if you're watching this live right now. And otherwise, just stay on the YouTube, stay on the Facebook page or YouTube page, and watch for the future panels. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you for the next one. Peace.